Okay, in terms of the stuff, for one, it's good news. Monday, of course, is Labor Day, so no class. Yay. Some people are already celebrating Labor Day ahead of time by taking that long weekend. In terms of the bad news, though, deadline saves have been all along. Quizzes part 1, deadline 5 of the day, September 18th. Exam 1, quizzes part 2, deadline October 16th. Exam 2, quizzes part 3, deadline November 13th. Exam 3, exam 4, quizzes part 4, deadline December 4th. Then exam number 5, the final, deadline 5 is December 11th. Noon. For the paper, if you want to do a draft, be sure to get it to me by November 16th. For the +5 bonus, deadline is November 18th. Full credit, November 25th, at December 4th. Before pressing on to the new stuff, any stuff about a previous stuff that needs more stuff. It's all about stuff. Okay, so last time we were looking at the exciting argument by analogy. We saw the way that worked was you take two things, you show they're alike in certain respects, and infer they're alike in some other respect. And then we turn to the beginning of the argument from or by example, which works like this. The basic idea is that you argue for something by giving example after example after example that supports that claim. Just like with the argument by analogy, there is a sort of formal form which people typically don't use unless they're philosophers or very strange, or both. But the basic structure is this. For the premises, for the reasons, you provide examples. Example 1 supports the claim, example 2 supports the claim, example n whatever number supports the claim, therefore the claim is true. For example, you might use this to prove that a person is what's known as a pizza mooch, or in the Latin, pizzicus moochicus. And a pizza mooch is someone who, they have amazing sensory abilities. They can see the pizza delivery coming from miles away. They can hear the delivery, did someone order a pizza from miles away? They can smell the pizza. But their legs are also well developed too, because once the pizza is consumed, they flee when it's time to chip in for it. So if you want to show that someone is a pizza mooch, what you do is present examples of pizza consumption without pizza chipping in. So you give all the examples. If there's lots of examples, you'd say, ha, the person is a pizza mooch. Now to use a more serious example, you can take the upcoming 2016 election. And the various candidates on the Republican side are debating various things. And one thing they might come up with might be something like foreign policy experience. And so what each candidate has to do is try to provide examples of this experience. For example, Carla Fiona was talking about how she had dealings with Vladimir Putin and various other people, and so she'd give examples, trying to establish her foreign policy experience. And the idea is by the weight of examples, hanging out with Putin, going to other countries, engaging in discussions with people around the world, then therefore she has foreign policy experience. To use a final non-philosophical example, what you might do is on your resume. When you're trying to present the claim that you are experienced in the field, you would give examples. I mean, you don't come out and say, I'm arguing by example, but it's sort of an implied one. You list all the experience you have, and the inference a person is supposed to draw is, aha, this person has experience. Look at all those examples. Now, how might this be used in philosophy, and how do you tell when you get a good one or a bad one? Well, here's an example of an argument by example that you might use in philosophy. Suppose you were taking a case, you're using a case on the ethics of, say, driverless cars. And you want to argue that driverless cars are good because they have many benefits. And the way to argue that they have many benefits is provide examples of the benefits and show there are many. So you might say, you wouldn't say premise 1, example of benefit is, example 2. You would do what a normal person would do, of course, is and describe some of the benefits. You might say that one of the important benefits of a driverless car is that if someone's drunk and they just go in their car, they just lay there, throwing up in their car, maybe they'll have like an auto hose to spray them down or clean out the car or something, drainage holes. But you know, if someone's drunk in their car and it's auto driving, that's perfectly safe. You know, they're just laying there, crashing around perhaps, and the car just drives them home because the car does not get drunk. Other examples, you know, long trips. People get tired. You know, they drift off the wheel. Computers never sleep, so that wouldn't be a problem anymore. Distractions and anger. You know, people get angry being cut off. They get taken over by road rage. Computers won't get angry. They won't have road rage. And so you can take those, you know, keep giving examples, and you can say, these examples show that driverless cars have many benefits. Or another example might be something like if you're writing about stem cell research, and you wanted to argue that it had, you know, many benefits. Same sort of deal. You could just present the benefits it has. Or if you want to argue against something, suppose someone wanted to argue that it would be immoral to legalize, say, heroin. And then they might say heroin is a very harmful drug, and then give examples of the harms, concluding that because of all these examples of harms, it's very harmful. So kind of the way to use this is to ask yourself, is this a scenario that I'm trying to prove something in which I could do so by giving lots of examples? So if I claim that driverless cars have many benefits, well, a good way to prove that something has many benefits is to give examples of many benefits. And then it's how to build it. Give the examples, draw the appropriate conclusion. Before going to how do you tell if you had a good one or a bad one, anything about the argument itself that needs any more stuff, or bad examples. I got lots of bad examples. Because they're cheap. I get out of Walmart and Sam's Club, give me a 100-pack of bad examples. So here's how you tell if you had a good one or a bad one or an ugly one. First, if you're trying to prove something by the sheer weight of examples, the more examples, the stronger the argument. These arguments, to argue from example, is inductive, which means that, you know, it comes in varying degrees of strength. And if you're taking, you know, arguments and saying, is this a strong argument, one to look at in terms of the strength is how many examples are there. The more, the better. So, for example, if someone claims that driverless cars have lots and lots of benefits, the more benefits you can give, the better the argument. So if I say many, many benefits, and I give many, many examples, stronger. If I just give one, that'd be pretty weak. Second, there is a matter of relevance of the examples. Because if the examples are numerous, but don't actually connect to what's trying to be proven, they, in a way, might as well not be there. Now, of course, they can come in degrees of relevance. Some things may be very relevant, less so. To use an illustration, think about, you know, going back to the example of the resume. Your list of experiences, in a way, is an implied argument by example. Your claim is basically, I've got, you know, experience, so hire me. And so, just like with a, you know, a list of job experience, one question would be is that experience actually, you know, relevant? So, for example, if I decided to apply to a job being a banker or stockbroker, my experience, like as a philosopher, probably not super relevant. Maybe an example of employment, but not super relevant. Similarly, the time I used to like paint, and I don't mean like fine painting like Michelangelo, I mean slap and paint on buildings for school money, would really not be relevant to being a banker either. So they'd be examples of employment, but not really relevant. Another example, going back to the one about foreign policy experience, one you know, good question would be if someone says, well, I've met people in other countries, well, is that foreign policy experience? I've met lots of people from other countries. You know, I was in grad school, you know, I've been teaching here for quite some time. I know people from all over the world. But I wouldn't consider myself to have foreign policy experience just because I know people from other places. I also own some maps. I wouldn't consider that to be foreign policy experience. And if someone said, well, I've traveled to other places, We'd say, well, a lot of people have traveled, but is that really foreign policy experience? Now, if someone says, I negotiated a complex agreements with, numerous countries, then yeah, foreign policy experience. So relevance important. Thirdly, the examples need to be specific and clearly identified. Because if someone just says, remember the time I did that stuff with foreign policy, that foreign stuff, wouldn't be particularly good. So the examples need to be, the more specific they are and clearly identified they are, the better. Just like again on your, going back to the example of the resume, in a way your resume is like an implicit argument, just saying, or rather a tacit argument saying, please, please hire me. And so when you're listing your, say, job experience, you want to specific. You want to say like, I did some work, I got paid for some stuff, because people will be like, what is that? What does that mean? Lastly, just as we saw with the argument by analogy, you'd want to consider relevant dissimilarities. Here you'd also want to consider counterexamples. Now, if an example supports your conclusion, a counterexample would do what to your conclusion?
Go against it.
Yeah, go against it. It'd be something that would, be an example that wouldn't. Now, the good question might be, why would I want to consider potential defects in the argument? Wouldn't that be like, getting in a fight and saying, if you hit me hard really here, I really can't see too well on the left side of my face, so keep punching me there. That'd be kind of stupid. So why would you want to consider potential problems? Well, making an argument, one reason is if you consider and respond to the counterexamples, that protects your argument. So in a sense, everything you sort of pre-defeat defends your argument from upcoming attacks. There's also the matter of sort of like the persuasive impact. If you're writing and you show that you considered, counterexamples, you're showing to the reader that you've considered this. And the reader's likely to say, oh, they considered this, they thought of this stuff, it could be more persuasive. There's also, as I mentioned before, one very useful bit of advice is, whenever there's a potential problem, unless you're completely sure no one would ever think of that problem and find out about it, it's generally good to, as I say, get ahead of the problem. To use a kind of extreme example, most of the scandals that occur in politics, they really get rolling really hard when people try to ignore them, cover them up, and conceal them, instead of just trying to get ahead of the problem. I mean, take the case with, Hillary and the server problem. If she just come out right at the start, handled it right away, probably less problem. But now it just keeps on going. And so in general, it's better to consider potential problems up front when you can control them and not get behind the curve. And that's more of a persuasive thing than a logical thing, but still useful. Now, in terms of also for the paper, if you do use an argument by example, this provides a built-in means of objection. As again with the paper, is you get the argument section showing why you're right. The objection is considering, an argument as to why you might be mistaken. And here is a very straightforward way to object it. Suppose you're doing the, again, a paper like on an essay on the ethics of driverless cars. And you've gone through all the examples of how they would be good, useful, beneficial. But you might want to consider as an objection, you might say, well, there are those, of course, who object. There could be negative things, potential harms from driverless cars. What could be some harms? Well, what are some potential bad things that could come from a driverless car? Suppose most people or all people have driverless cars. How could that be bad?
Not knowing when to stop when someone is walking.
Could be a problem. What about people who make their living now driving taxis? Will driverless cars be good for them?
Oh, yeah.
No, because if you have a driverless car, you don't need a
But
taxi.
it would be expensive. I don't think everyone is going to buy one.
No, right away. I mean, first they'll be like the Teslas.
Yeah.
They'll be probably like 90 or 100,000. And most people will buy them. Unless well, maybe they Google might make them cheap, but yeah, they're probably pretty expensive right away. And then people will be reluctant to get them. So for a while, taxi drivers will be fine. But eventually, then You know, if you're a taxi driver, you probably wouldn't like driverless cars. Or you might be worried you might be replaced by one, because it's like, hey, we can hire this taxi driver, or we just buy a car, and it does all the taxiing, you know, for us. Yeah, so one concern is that. Another kind of potential problem is, well, think of the people who handle collisions and wrecks. If the driverless cars are as safe as they claim they are, there'll be a lot less collisions and wrecks, which means the people who like repair automobiles and, you know, tow them and, you know, repaint them, they're going to lose work. So the garages will have far less business. And hospitals, you know, there'll be less people injured. So really, I mean, these seem like, you know, we generally think of it as a good thing, there'll be less accidents, but there are people who make a living repairing cars that are busted in accidents. And there are people, you know, in hospitals, operate quite a bit, you know, people will get hurt, and you know, a lot of people get hurt in car accidents, and so that will affect the economy. People sell products to people who get hurt, you know, medicines, etc. And so you could say that those could be examples of potential harms. Now, of course, if you're arguing that driverless cars are good, you'd want to reply to those and say, yes, those are potential problems, but there are far more benefits than harms, as these examples show. And then Google will kill us all, problem solved. I actually predicted that before. Elon Musk, he predicted that Google will kill us all, but I did it a year before him. I predicted that Google, and it's in you know, it's got a timestamp on the web, on a British blog. It said Google will kill us all. I predicted, you heard it here first. Well, I didn't hear it here first, but you heard it, I said it first. But anyways, but small consolation, being right about that. Now, last thing, arguments by example can also, of course, be used, as we saw, outside of philosophy and ethics. And so, pretty useful stuff. Before going to our last one, the dreaded argument from authority, anything about this that needs more stuff? Okay. The third in our trinity of basic arguments is the argument from authority. Basic idea is this. Argument from authority is when you say, this is true because an authority has said that it is true. And one should always, of course, respect authority. Now, these are used in various ways. One common use is, probably the most common one, is use it in cases where we ourselves are not an expert. And what we do is we need to establish something is true, we're not an expert in the field, and we don't want to like argue for, you know, present like a big argument for it, etc. And so what we do is we find an expert who said it. And anytime, well, a lot of times we use like footnotes, etc. In a way that's an argument from authority. Footnote, this claim is true because it came from this authority. Not all footnotes are like that, of course, but it's a common way to use it. Here's a claim, it's from this history book, therefore it's true. Another way we use them is as a part of another argument. So we might need like to establish a premise, and then we use an argument from authority to establish it, the expert says it, it's true, and then we move on with the rest of our argument. Now even if you are an expert in the field, it's common to use arguments from authority from other people basically to show consensus among experts. So if I have like an argument about something, and I say, well, all these other experts agree with me, that makes my case even stronger. Some of the experts are competent, etc. Now, the formal form, which people don't use unless they're philosophers or have some sort of bizarre issue, is this. The first premise, you establish the person as an authority on a particular subject. Premise 2, you show they make the claim about that subject, therefore you conclude the claim is true. Now, again, people usually don't write like this. They'll say things like, Stephen Hawking's, a noted expert on physics, has claimed that artificial intelligence could result in the extermination of the human race. Therefore, it's true. And that'd be an argument from authority. You know, Stephen Hawking is an authority on sciencey stuff. He's making a claim, you know, the claim that artificial intelligence will kill us all in some sciencey field, therefore that claim is true. Or to use like a less extreme one, when we go to like a doctor or a dentist, and they tell us, like if your dentist tells you you've got a cracked tooth, you can't You might not be able to tell by looking at it yourself, but you infer that because they're an expert in a field, their claim is true. Or when you read the, when you turn on the news, you see like Anderson Cooper or the Wolf Blitzer, claiming stuff, we think they're true because they have credibility, or so we think. Now, how do you use this in like a philosophical argument? Well, one way to do it would be, I'll give a couple examples. One is you might want to, when I'll talk about this, we talk about the field of consequences, you might need to establish, say, a moral theory. You might say, well, according to John Stuart Mill, morality should be assessed in terms of creating happiness and unhappiness. John Stuart Mill is an expert in ethics, so that's plausible. Another example might be if you have to establish, say, a factual claim. And to use a more concrete example, you do something like this. Suppose you're arguing about capital punishment, and you argue against it. And you want to argue that it's wrong because it does not actually deter. And what you might do to establish that, you might say, according to, so-and-so, noted expert on capital punishment and criminology, asserts that based on, 50 independent studies, that capital punishment does not deter. Therefore, it doesn't. And so then you'd go on to make your moral argument. Since capital punishment deters, then killing people to deter crime does not work, therefore it would be wrong to do it. But you establish the part about it not deterring by the authority. So kind of a good use for this in your paper would be if you need to establish a factual claim. Like if you're wondering, does capital punishment deter or not? What you do is look at an expert. And just according to the expert, blah, blah, blah. Or if there was something like, say about the effects of depriving people of privacy, psychological effects. You can find an expert on that. Or if it's, say, the psychological effects of cheating on someone. I mean, we know that people don't like being cheated on, but you could go and find like a psychiatrist, a psychologist who's investigated this, and they would say, the terrible effects. So if you ever need to have a factual claim to support it, experts, good place to look. Before pressing on to how to tell if you have a good one or not, anything about that needs more stuff.
Never mind. The answer is right there.
Oh, okay. That's a good slide. Great job.
I was going to ask you, it says person A and person A, can it be two different people stating about the same situation?
Oh, sure, it should be the same. Well, yeah, it should be if you establish them as an authority, you should stick with the same person for the claim. But a good question. So here's how we tell if it's got a good argument or not. First, and most obviously, the person actually has to be an expert in that subject. So the person's got to be an expert. How do we tell? Well, this would include things like their education, their experience, the view of other experts in the field, etc. And so it would be essentially establishing their expertise. Now, depending on what you're dealing with, the standards can be quite different. For example, if you're looking at like an academic expert, you look at degree, years in the field, their position, and their experience in that area. If you wanted an expert, say, a person being like a Maine guide, guiding people through the woods of Maine, you probably wouldn't be super concerned about whether they had a degree in guideology, if there is such a thing. Probably, maybe is now. But you'd still look at their things like their experience, your references, etc. So the first thing is the person actually an expert? And the answer is, yeah, good. The answer is not so much, bad. Now the second point of concern is, even though a person is an expert in one area, that doesn't mean they're an expert in all areas, or even related or close areas. So you also want to ask, is the person talking or writing within their area of expertise? If the answer is no, it doesn't mean they're wrong, but this argument rests on the idea that this person is an expert, they know what they're talking about, so they're probably right. But if a person is talking about something they're not an expert on, they're no more, or less, likely to be right than anybody else. Now, this, or ignoring this, is often used in advertising, celebrity advertising. Because the way celebrity advertising typically works is, it's not, hey, this person's an expert at what we're selling, therefore buy it. It's, hey, this person's famous or whatever, so buy this stuff. I mean, one example would be, well, Tiger Woods, before he was out wooding around and got in trouble, he used to have all kinds of, contracts, or like, Nike, and even like with insurance companies, etc. But is Tiger an expert at insurance? If you wondered, like, what insurance should you get, would you give Tiger a call? Tiger, should I get insurance in my car in case my wife decides to come with a golf club, fashion holes in it? No, I mean, he probably, it's enough, he knows it the same as about anybody else, but he's not an expert on insurance. So if someone says, oh, I'm going to buy this insurance because Tiger Woods says so, yeah, not so good. Or another example, I'll pick on athletes. Michael Jordan, still selling that, Hanes underwear and T-shirts and stuff. Is he an expert on fashion and comfort? Well, he knows. I mean, he wears underwear, and shirts, most likely. But is he more of an expert than anyone else? Has he dedicated years of study to underwearology? No. I mean, his advice on T-shirts and underwear, no better or worse than most other people. But it's cashing out on this celebrity. Same with like actors. When they have actors and actresses selling stuff, unless it's actually their field, the fact that someone's like famous, actor, they were in that movie with that guy, doesn't show they know what they're talking about. The idea is, look, they're a celebrity, buy their stuff. Now, of course, it can even happen in the sciencey stuff. For example, Stephen Hawking, really smart guy?
Yes.
Genius. Well, what's his field? What's he do?
Physicist?
Yeah, physics. Now, is physics different from, say, artificial intelligence? Yeah, different field. Now, he's a really smart guy, so we should probably listen to him like when he says stuff, but when he talks about artificial intelligence, his expertise would be less than someone who actually does that. So I had a choice between, even though Stephen Hawking is super smart and super awesome and stuff, if another expert, who was a person who actually was an expert at AI, and that's their field, I would tend to believe the expert in AI over him, because that's what they do. Now, if it came down to physics, listen to him. But if he's talking about artificial intelligence, then probably the expert in AI. Similarly, Elon Musk. He's predicted that Google is going to kill us all. Totally right about that. That's how it ends. Spoiler alert. Google does kill us all. But, Elon Musk is a really smart guy. But, of course, we probably want to go with people who are actually experts on artificial intelligence. Elon Musk might be one. He might be, learning now and building his own robot army to fight Google. But we have to be careful. Just because someone, say, is brilliant in physics or philosophy or engineering doesn't automatically transfer to other areas. Now, people with, who are really smart, like Stephen Hawking, the fact they're really smart does give us a reason to give their opinion some credibility. But it's always fair to ask, okay, he's really smart about physics, but is he an expert really on the AI apocalypse? Does he know that better than people who do that for a living? And of course, he's right. Again, machines will kill us all, but we still want to look at some other experts. Third, there is adequate degree of agreement among experts. Now, kind of the platinum standard in the sciencey stuff is consensus. Now, that said, it doesn't guarantee that the majority is right. If you look at the history of science, there are, of course, people present these as paradigm cases of sciencing where the majority of experts turn out to be a mistake. And then, someone like Galileo or Einstein, comes along and revolutionizes the field, changes it radically. But the cases in which people overturn, established theory, those tend to be so well known because, for the most part, what the experts generally agree tends to be correct. So the idea is that you should keep in mind, yes, the majority of experts could be mistaken. that then show on the screen it does happen. But the kind of the platinum standard is the majority opinion of qualified experts at the time is the most rational thing to believe. Why? Well, the idea is basically, if you have lots and lots of experts who are really smart people and know their stuff, and they agree on something, then there's a really good chance that it's right. Now, if there are other people who disagree, we run into the following problem. How do we know, like, which to go with? The majority or the numerical minority? And rational thing to do is go with the majority. Because if we're not an expert ourselves, then how do we pick? Well, we really can't because we're not experts. So the smart thing to do is go with the majority opinion of the qualified experts. Could the lone rebel be right? Could be. But we have no way of knowing that. Now, interestingly, what people often do is they go with the expert they agree with. And a fair question to ask is, why think that one person or two people are right when the majority of experts think that they're wrong? And if the person's not an expert themselves, their usual answer has got to be, well, I like that, but that's not proven. I mean, a good example is climate change. People ask, what do you think about climate change? And I say, well, I got an A in earth science in college, 1,000 years ago, back in the days of the really old days. But I'm not an expert on climate science. I mean, I remember some stuff. I remember terms like heat and El Nino and rain and so forth. So what I do is I look at what do the majority of experts say, and the majority of experts say climate change is real. Could they be wrong? Yes. Do I know if they're wrong? I do not. So I go with the majority of experts' opinions, keeping in mind I could be totally mistaken. Now, it turned out the majority said, well, sorry, we were wrong, climate change is not occurring. I would say, well, they were wrong, but they've shown their view is changed. I go with the majority opinion again, because that's how this works. So the takeaway is this. The majority of experts, if they agree, platinum standard, probably correct. Could they be wrong? Completely. But to pick the numerical minority, like the rebel, so to speak, as being right, you need some reason. Why think that the small number of people who are disagreeing with the majority are right? And the answer can be, because I like that, because that's not proof. I mean, there are a lot of things I really wish were true. I wish, for example, that bacon made me live longer. Sadly it does not. And there are some experts who say that bacon is really good for you, but I think they're probably wrong because the majority says bacon is not good for you. But I really want to believe in the power of bacon. Actually, I do believe in the power of bacon. I just had to cut back on eating it because of the power of death. Next thing, the expert must not be significantly biased. Now, everyone has biases. People often point out, well, that person's got some biases. And the answer is, yeah, everyone's got some sort of biases because we're obviously not perfect. We have likes and dislikes. And of course, everyone's probably biased towards their own views. I like my own theories. If I didn't like them, I wouldn't believe them. But the question is the expert significantly biased? Do they have prejudices or influences that would unduly affect their ability to make claims? If the answer is no, good. Doesn't mean they're right. Just means they're not unduly biased. If the answer is they are biased, it also doesn't mean they're wrong. Someone can be biased and right, but it gives you grounds to be suspicious. For example, if we take the example of, well, let's take some unfortunate examples from real life. Take, one thing, everyone probably heard that the omega fatty acids are good for you, and we're all supposed to start taking those like fish tablets.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Fish one.
Yeah, but it turned out that no, stuff wasn't. The same with vitamins actually turned out to be kind of bad for you. Not like super bad, like cyanide, but kind of bad for you. And it turns out that a lot of these, science we have involving, supplements, nutrition, etc., not only was like bad science, but was biased science. And so it turns out that in some cases the experts were being influenced by people funding their research. And so one thing to ask is if there's a study at a university that says, oh yeah, mega, product is great, and you look at their funding, and they're funded by mega product, doesn't mean they're wrong. Mega product could be awesome, could be the greatest thing ever, could be mega awesome. But if someone's getting fat stacks of cash from, you know, megacorp, would that give them an incentive to make the results good? Yeah, and so there is, in fact, there's a concern because there's something of a scandal in, you know, the science journals that many of the results have not been reproduced, and when they tested them, they turned out to be incorrect. Now, it's not the climate change stuff. It usually involves things like medicine and products. You know, and the concern is that as universities lose, you know, public funding, they have to turn to corporate funding. And if, you know, again, if megacorp gives you a fat stack of cash, you're probably reluctant to bring back bad results for megacorp. Again, not to say, one must also consider, of course, that research can be funded by companies and still be completely honest. It doesn't mean we should not infer that it's got to be wrong, but we should be suspicious. If something is being funded by something or influenced by it, then we should have some questions. May turn out to be perfectly fine. You know, good research is often funded by companies, but biased research is often funded by companies as well. So, if not biased, good. If biased, potential problem. Last two, the area of expertise is going to be legitimate. For example, there are people on the web who would be happy to sell you all kinds of stuff, claiming to be experts at all kinds of made-up stuff. Like, someone may claim to be like an expert at healing crystallography or something, where they, you know, treat you with magical healing crystals. But since there are no magical healing crystals, at least as far as you know, can't be a legitimate area. And so a fair question to ask, is that a real area or not? Lastly, the authority must be properly cited. The reason why is, of course, if we don't know who the authority is, we have no way of judging the rest of this stuff. We don't know if they're an expert, we don't know if they're talking in the field of expertise. We don't know if they're biased, and so we'd be missing key information. Now, one practical problem that arises here, of course, is, in the context of journalism, is anonymous sources. If you read like news stuff, you probably often hear them say things like sources close to the president, or experts in finance, or bless you, or top people in the field of artificial intelligence. And a good question is, well, who are those people? Is the journalist just like making stuff up? Because if you don't know who the authority is, you can't apply these standards. So if someone says experts in the field of artificial intelligence say, you'd have to ask, well, are they really experts? Who are these people? And so you should always be aware of anonymous sources. Now, of course, they do occur, and sometimes do occur for legitimate reasons. Like if they're citing someone who's, say, undercover, you know, in a criminal organization, or leaking information out of a despotic government, they probably don't want to identify those people, because then they would be killed. But you should always be suspicious of anonymous authorities. So that brings us to the end of the argument from authority. Inductive, useful, does some stuff. So that takes us through our trinity of the three. Now, in terms of people probably wondering, okay, do we have to use these in the paper? And the answer is no. If you ask, can we use them in the paper? The answer is, of course, yes. So you don't have to use, in the paper you do have to argue, but you don't have to use any particular method. You still don't have to use all of them, because we're going to go through a lot of them. If you used them all, your paper would be really, really, really big. It would be mega paper, produced by a megacorp. Okay, before heading into methods that are explicitly dealing with ethics, anything about these three that need more three stuff? Now, in what follows will be methods that are designed primarily for reasoning in ethics, but they can be used in other areas as well. Our first one is an attack method called logical consistency. Here's the idea. Consistency is a concept in logic, and it involves a relationship between, you know, two claims. Basically, you take, I mean, you can bring in more, but typically the deal is you take two claims and you talk about them being consistent or inconsistent with each other. What does that mean? Well, for two claims to be consistent means they both could be true at the same time. They can also both be false, but they both could be true. If two claims are inconsistent, that means they both can't be true, but they could both be false. And you might not know which one, which is which. Now, there's also a notion called contradiction, and people often throw around the term contradiction informally, but technically speaking, a contradiction is this. If two claims contradict each other, one must be true and one must be false. You might not know which, but one of them's got to be true, one of them's got to be false. So what are some examples of these? Well, if I claim there is vodka in the bottle, and I claim there is water in the bottle, those are consistent claims. Why? Could they both be true? Yeah, I could have vodka cut with water. So it lasts longer. Could they both be false?
Yes.
Yeah, the bottle could be empty, or it could contain, sand or something. Now, if I say the bottle contains only vodka, and I say the bottle contains only water, would those be inconsistent? Could they both be true? No. One, if it's all vodka, it's not water. I mean, yeah, vodka's got water in it. And if it contains just water, it contains no vodka. But both could be false, because it might contain nothing. So if two claims are inconsistent, at least one of them is going to be false, possibly both. Now, a contradiction would be the claim, if you have two claims that are contradictory, one of them's got to be true. So the bottle is empty, the bottle is not empty, are contradictions. You know one of them's got to be true, because either it's empty or it's not. You don't know for sure which one, but you know one of them's got to be true and one of them's got to be false. So what's the method? Well, the method is an attack method. So you probably wouldn't use this in your paper, but it's a method worth considering. And here's the idea. What you do to deploy it is you would show that someone is being inconsistent in their claims. They make one claim, they make another claim, and these claims both can't be true. So one of them's got to go. You don't know which one necessarily is going to go, but at least one of them has to be false. So you don't know which one is wrong, but you know at least one of them is wrong. What would be an actual example of this? Well, consider the following. Suppose you're talking to someone and two claims come across. One is they make the claim that everyone should be treated equally, but then they also claim that some people should get special treatment. Now in that case, if someone says all people should be treated equally, and someone says some people should receive special treatment, they're inconsistent. They both can't be true. So you could legitimately say to the person, the two claims that are being made can't both be true. One of them's is wrong. Now suppose you're on the receiving end of that. Suppose someone says to you, you're being inconsistent. How could you respond? Well, one option, which really isn't defense, is if you really are being inconsistent, it says, you're right. I'm inconsistent. You got me. One of them's got to go. Now, preferably, of course, the one you'd want to have go would be one that was not true. You wanted to keep the true one. Second response, which actually is a defense, is doing what's known as dissolving the inconsistency. The idea is to show that although the things seem inconsistent, they actually can be reconciled. For example, again, the person's claims are, the one principle is all people should be treated equally. Second thing is some people are entitled to special treatment. And the challenge is how do we hold both of those to be true, when on the face of it, they seem incompatible, inconsistent. Well, the reason for this is the example to show how that can be handled. Now, strictly speaking, is handicap parking, etc., does that give some people special treatment? Hey, you get a special parking place. usually, the best, well, close to the best parking. Administrators and executives getting better parking. But yeah, it's closer to the thing. It's interesting is that the law requires, there be accessible parking anywhere. And I've actually been, or accessible facilities, I've actually been on the top of mountains where there's like a bathroom you have to climb the mountain to get to, and it's got handicap accessibility. Which I thought, if someone could get up a mountain, they could handle the bathroom, but, it's also fair, I guess. Somebody could probably be able to climb a mountain, but the bathroom could still be challenged. But when I first saw it, I was like, that's unusual. I thought, yeah, I guess it makes sense. And when I thought about it again. Now, so we could say that handicap parking is special treatment. You get those cool parking spaces. But of course, the reason why the person gets the cool parking space is because, at least in theory, they...
Special needs.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's, missing their legs, or like one of their legs is, their legs are busted up, they have to use a wheelchair, or they're on crutches or something, getting across like a whole parking lot, much more difficult. Similarly when they have ramps, when they put on ramps on buildings. You could say, well, that's, special treatment, those fancy ramps. But if a person, their legs are busted up, then that's not special, it just means they can get into the building. Similar like with Braille, we wouldn't say like the Braille signs are like, ooh, that's special for those blind people. It's that so they can read it. So they get the same treatment, equal access, but they need, essentially, you don't want to call it special, but they need, different parking spaces, ramps, etc. And when I had my quadriceps tendon totally torn, so my leg was immobilized, or trying to get around campus, I'm like, wow, this super sucks. Yeah, because the elevators, of course, wouldn't work, and I was like, yes, stairs, one working leg and stairs. This is going to be fun. Yeah, so actually, I almost think that everyone should have to, spend a day like in a wheelchair or something, or like with a blindfold, to see what it's like. Because when my leg was busted before, I had sort of a theoretical understanding. Okay, it's rough being handicapped, but when my leg was immobilized, I was like, this is really rough. And I'm in good shape, and I got one working leg, but some people don't have even one good working leg. So you'd say, yeah, we can reconcile those. You can believe in equality of the treatment and still believe in special accommodations. But they're not really special because they're simply allowing people to achieve the same level of access. Last thing. Now, back in the ancient days of the start of the semester last week, I mentioned relativism, subjectivism, nihilism. Now, for two claims to be inconsistent means that they both can't be true. What if you believe moral truth depends on your culture? Well, in that case, you could only bring up a charge of moral inconsistency within the culture. Because if you're a relativist, killing could be right here and wrong here. So you can only use inconsistency if you're a relativist in your culture. You can only say they're being inconsistent within that culture. Because different cultures will have totally different moral claims. If you're a subjectivist, inconsistency kind of goes out the window because you can only be inconsistent with yourself. But then you can say, my principle is I can be inconsistent. So this wouldn't, if someone's a subjectivist, this wouldn't work. Well, if subjectivism were true, this wouldn't work, because there would be no objective moral truth to say that one's inconsistent with the other. And people, to close, people who are moral nihilists think that morality is talking about nothing. So moral claims cannot be inconsistent because they don't have any meaning. People are talking about nothing. So that's our first method. Again, you probably use it in paper because it's an attack method. And next time we'll pick up with inconsistent application, talking about more stuff. So have a good extended weekend, and I'll see you all on Wednesday.
You too.